Master of Ceremonies, Nathan Cassar.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Just As Planned Weddings podcast show. I'm your host, as always, Nathan Cassar, and today we're diving into the world of wedding ceremonies with a true pro who's making waves in the celebrant world. Joining us today is Alison Pickel, otherwise known as Alison the Celebrant, a wedding industry powerhouse hailing from Marrickville in Sydney's inner west. Alison's journey from a print and digital media journalist to one of Sydney's most sought-after celebrants is nothing short of fascinating. Since swapping deadlines for I Do's in 2018, Alison has been dedicated to making wedding ceremonies personal, unique, and filled with meaningful moments. In addition to being an experienced celebrant and wedding MC, Alison is also a celebrant trainer, ceremony ghostwriter, and the New South Wales local leader for the Celebrant Society. She's very busy indeed. She's passionate about empowering other celebrants and making sure couples get the most out of their wedding day. Today, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of what a celebrant actually does beyond the ceremony, including the legal bits you may not know about, how to choose the perfect celebrant, and why the price for celebrants can vary so much. Alison will also debunk some common myths like, why can't my friend get ordained online to marry me? And providing expert advice for couples who are tying the knot. When she's not making couples' weddings dream come true, you can find Alison geeking out over pop culture, solving escape room puzzles, or simply hanging out with her two rescue cats, Pancake and Barney, who I hope that they make an appearance on the show, because last week we also had another animal appearance too. Alison, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I think wedding industry powerhouse might be my new tagline. I love that.
You are welcome to take it. Absolutely. I'm here to serve as always, as an MC does. Alison, it's a pleasure to talk with you. It's funny, we only just worked together recently, even though you've been around for a bit longer than I have in the industry. But more importantly, you've been as you quite rightfully say in your bio, you are, someone who is well sought after, well known amongst the celebrant industry. You certainly shy from the spotlight when it comes to people knowing exactly the kind of value that you bring to the table. It was such a pleasure to work with you recently, and your bubbly personality, but also one that comes with a lot of heart and energy and soul to your presentation. It truly makes sense from what I can see, from just looking outside in. And so, tell me, what's it been like these last number of years, just sort of, building this career, but then also sort of stepping out a little bit and also being a sort of a leader amongst your peers?
Look, honestly, it was not something I ever thought I would do, weddings. It was not. I'm not even married myself. Should I admit that? No, I
think it's okay. I just to be clear, to help you to feel better, I'm not either, so it's okay.
Yeah. But I never really considered the wedding industry until, like, a really common story amongst many wedding professionals, until a friend was getting married, and then they said to me, "Hey, would you be interested in being our celebrant?" And I was like, "Yes, I would love to do that. That sounds amazing." And then I found out how much work it would be to become a celebrant, and I was like, "Absolutely not. Way too much work." But in this particular case, they had a wedding in France, so they had the legals done in Australia, and then I went to France to do the non-legal ceremony, and I came back, quit my job immediately, and started training to become a marriage celebrant, because I just found that it was what I would feel like I was really meant to do. I've always been a storyteller for about 20 years. I've been telling other people's story through the media, but it was lacking that long-term personal connection with people. And I get to know these couples over months and really bring so much joy to their day. It's the most, anyone who works in the wedding industry will tell you, it's the most incredible industry to work in, because you just
couldn't agree more.
All the time. Yeah, it's great.
No,
great.
it's a phenomenally personal experience, and I think to sort of dispel a myth out there, they just see it as a job, or it's just a way to get an exorbitant amount of money out of us in order for it to exploit the fact that we're happy and in love and so forth. Like, that is not the case for 99.95% of people within the industry that I've worked with. I mean, sure, can I be an absolute and say that there's not a single person out there hasn't done that? No, I can't say that. But certainly I know that the vast majority of our ilk are people like you and I who have that passion to tell people's story or to allow their story to come to life through whatever skill or talent we're bringing to the table. So no, it's an incredible story, and you should be very well commended for it.
Look, to put it out there, no one's getting rich off working in the wedding industry. It might seem like it because it is really expensive to throw a wedding. I'm not denying that, and there is a lot of cost, but it is a luxury event, and a certain level of service is expected, and so that costs a lot of time and money for the couples, but also it's a lot of time and skill and cost that goes in for the vendors as well. So that's why it's sort of reflected in the price there.
Absolutely. And we're going to touch on that a little bit later, but I sort of wanted to first, talk about, I think I sort of brought this up just a little bit earlier about the perception that people often can have about, particularly when it comes to celebrants, speaking more specifically to your level of expertise. But I know that there's a lot more that goes behind the scenes. I've got a lot of friends like yourself in the industry who are celebrants, and I respect immensely what goes on behind the closed doors and in your home, in your office, while people are waiting to have their special day. Could you walk us through some of the tasks and responsibilities that go into a celebrant that sort of goes much more beyond what the guests and even the couple are going to see on the day when they're at the center of the aisle?
Absolutely. I think that if you really want to annoy a celebrant, the easiest way to do it is to say, must be nice to get paid that much for 30 minutes of work. Because it'd be glorious to get paid that much for 30 minutes of work. That is absolutely.
And there are jobs out there that do that, but not the celebrant.
Not a celebrant, unfortunately. And I don't really blame people for having that perception, because the only part that they see most of the time until they start working with a celebrant is that 30 minutes or so. What they don't know is that hours and hours and hours of work has gone into getting to that moment. And that's just talking about the work that you do with the couple. That's not even counting the invisible work of running a business, which includes, marketing, and celebrants in particular have to do ongoing professional development every year just to stay registered. We have compulsory education, but we also, many of us, continue education in other ways, such as being part of associations or going to professional development events. So there's all that invisible work that's not directly related to a particular wedding as well. But if we're just talking about a couple, there's the booking, the meeting them to get a feel and see if we're great, all the admin work involved in contracts and invoicing and following up. There's the planning meeting, which for me goes for a couple of hours. There's all the paperwork. And the most important thing, obviously, is that we carry all the legal liability for the wedding as well.
Very true.
If anyone's going to go to jail over a wedding not going right, it's a very good chance it could be the celebrant if they do something illegal.
Yes, absolutely. And there was a case back in 22-23, correct, down in Melbourne, where a celebrant was I think married at least 4 or 5 people.
Celebrant? Married 5 people.
Of course. Yeah,
and he wasn't a registered celebrant. So that wasn't he wasn't even a registered celebrant, and his maximum penalty, I believe, I'm not a lawyer and I'm fairly well acquainted with the Marriage Act, but just deceiving people into thinking that you're a marriage celebrant and performing a ceremony where everyone is not aware that it's not a legal ceremony carries a maximum of 6 months imprisonment as a penalty.
Yeah.
So pretty serious stuff.
And I think also the emotional costs, right? And I think that's the real part that we want to really drive home, is that those 30 minutes or 45, if you're doing extra little beautiful touches such as sand ceremonies and so forth. But either way, 30 to 45 minutes of what's seen on the presentation side, as you say, has that immense sort of legal weight to it as well, but also the emotional tax that goes along with it. If you get the emotions wrong, if you're not somebody who's skilled enough to gather that appropriate ball of energy that's and vibe that is being given by the guests and of course your couples, then that is a moment lost in time that you can never reclaim. And so I think it's really important to understand that that those 30 minutes are prepared for quite extensively, and therefore that's why it comes across so polished and so, oh, if only I was paid for 30 minutes of easy work kind of attitude.
And there's a lot of logistical things as well that people don't even consider, like knowing how to use a PA properly, knowing how to set up so that they get the best sound, knowing how to move through the ceremony, knowing how to, and this is super key, work with the other vendors there, knowing how to work as a team with the photographer and videographer and the musicians so that everything runs really smoothly. A lot of the time, if they've done their job really, really well, you're not even going to notice. You mostly notice when things go wrong.
And I think this really lends to my next question. It's a great point because it's about the essence of the fact that people see the different prices. I see it on Facebook groups all the time. Like, oh, I only thought that a celebrant should charge $500, but yet I want the full-on ceremony in front of 100 guests, etc. Not the $500 basically will cover your registry type of wedding, and so and then even then you've got fees that can go up to upwards of say $2,500 or more, depending on different varying sort of personalities and options that you can choose for celebrants. So we want to dial in on that now. Like, simply this: why do they vary so much, these fees, and what should couples look for when choosing one that fits within their budget and needs?
That's such a great question, Nathan, because it is one that comes up over and over again. And I think sometimes people are really worried about coming across as cheap, or if they say, well, I wanted to pay this much for this vendor. I can tell you now, vendors are not judging you for having a wedding budget. We understand that weddings are expensive, that everyone has different needs. Please don't say, I'm looking for someone who doesn't cost an arm or a leg, because I guarantee no one is accepting body parts for payment.
Not at all.
I can't pay off my mortgage with a leg. So
my freezer's full, unfortunately. I've already accepted them all.
But it is really helpful if you can say, I'm looking for a celebrant who charges X amount. I'm really happy if that just means a simple ceremony. Whatever.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But there is a huge variety in how much different celebrants cost. And that's because celebrants, like every other wedding professional, are creatives.
True.
So you sort of mentioned before about how they bring in that emotional moment, and it's that one day, and it's knowing how to tell that story. And just like how I would expect to pay different amounts for people who have different levels of experience, it's the same with celebrants. And experience doesn't even necessarily mean specifically that they are an experienced celebrant, because there's a lot of people who come into this industry with fantastic skills from previous jobs.
Yeah, true.
For example, I've been a celebrant for 7 years, 6 and a bit years. And before that, I had many, many years of writing people's stories as a media professional. So I'm really strong on the storytelling aspect. A lot of celebrants used to be teachers. They can hold a crowd and get them sorted and hold everyone's attention really well. A lot of people are bringing in so many creative, interesting skills to that position. And they're going to charge accordingly, according to their skills, their experience, also their area, because, and it's not because I'm in Sydney, I'm charging you more than someone in the country just because I think I can get away with charging more. It's because this is their business. This is their livelihood.
And life is more expensive here, to be perfectly frank. So, I mean, like, unfortunately, the fact
my living costs, I need to charge more because it costs more to live where I live than it does in other parts of the country. So you are going to see variations across the the state, across the country. And then there's also variations between people who do this full time versus people who do it as a hobby, who don't rely on that as their income. So basically, don't judge a celebrant solely on price. Don't think that they're ripping you off because they're charging more. There are so many factors that go into this. As a little bit of guidance, though, you can probably rely on the fact that a celebrant who is charging maybe a little bit more, maybe, again, I don't want to say this is a blanket statement, but if they're charging a little bit more than the lowest in their area, there's a good chance that that is someone who's really invested in their celebrant career and take it very seriously. They're probably spending more on being a celebrant outside of just your wedding. So they're probably spending more on having a really good PA system. They're probably spending more. They might be part of an association where they're learning, and it means that they've got a bunch of backup celebrants if they can't come to your wedding because they're sick or any reason. They're really thinking about this as a career and how much they want to invest in your day.
Yeah.
That's not to say that celebrants who are at the lower end of the scale aren't great as well. But as a rule of thumb, if they're like mid-price to higher price for your area, they're probably really, really invested in doing this professionally. And
no, it's a great point, and I think you're on the money there, so to speak. In the sense that, you know, I mean, I'm equating it also to, you know, my world as an MC. It's exactly the same thing. In the end of the day, you know, my price reflects a full-time operation where this is literally my life. And you're right, I'm spending much more expenses into my business to ensure that I meet the right people, have the right equipment, maintenance. You know, I'm traveling more. I don't rely on a salary in order from another job, but also I have more time to be able to devote to the people that come into my orbit as well. And I think that's a real critical thing, is that the amount of money that you're spending on the more so-called expensive celebrants are those who are now, they're pricing it according to the amount of time that you're getting from them. They're going to be doing more hands-on with their stories. They're going to be doing more hands-on meetings and wanting to have the opportunity to call you at times when you're going to be available, as opposed to, oh, I'll talk to you at 9 o'clock after I've got back from home, put the kids to bed, and then I'm finally can give you half an hour of my time because it's already part-time or a side hustle. So I think that's a really, really important part. And I think I think that you've definitely gone great lengths to dispel some of the myths. Now, speaking of another myth, Alison, is the one about sort of this idea that a friend can just pop along, like in the States, and go to, you know, marriage celebrate or efficient.com, as they call them there, and essentially get ordained within 2 seconds and have it at presto, you can marry them. Obviously, it is 100% not the case here in the Commonwealth of Australia. And so could you possibly give us more of an idea of why it's not as simple as it sounds, and why it's important to have a professional celebrant?
yes, well, I'm sorry to dispel all those Hollywood movies and television shows that just show people getting ordained online. That is a thing that is permitted in some states in America. It is not the case in Australia. So in Australia, we actually have 4 different kinds of celebrants. There are ministers of religion. So that is someone who is a minister or a leader in their particular religion, and it's a recognized denomination by the Australian government. So we're talking Catholic, Islam, even Scientology, actually. There you go. There's one.
It's recognized. It's recognized, yeah.
And they've done whatever courses they've needed to do to get, but they still need to be registered. So
Yes.
not automatically a celebrant, but they have their own courses and things that they need to do.
True, because I do work with some who've done the ceremony part, like the nice words, so to speak, but they've had to work with another registered civil celebrant who's had to come in and actually do the paperwork and also say the specific phrasing that needs to be said according to the Marriage Act in order to make it legal. And it's one of the first questions I have for any couple when they say, "Oh, we're getting our pastor to come along," is, hang on, are they registered or you got someone coming with them? Because some don't realize that just because they're the leader of your church that they haven't actually done those requirements yet.
Correct. Yeah. Then the second are the state officers, so the people at the Registry of Births, Deaths and Marriages who are state employees who are registered to marry people within those particular buildings or whatever's been approved by the state. Then the most common one when we're talking about celebrants, generally when people are talking about celebrants, they're talking about the third category, which is Commonwealth registered marriage celebrants, which is what I am. And that is civil celebrants who are permitted to marry people anywhere within Australia. We can marry people anywhere, anytime, as long as we're on Australian soil, and we have specific words that we need to say and specific words that the couple need to say in order to be married. And then category B is probably the category D, the fourth one, is a subcategory of civil celebrants, and that's Commonwealth registered religious marriage celebrants. So that's not the same as ministers of religion. That's people who work for a non-recognized denomination, so a niche church, who still have to go through the same registration process as civil celebrants, but it just means that they can choose not to marry certain groups.
Gotcha.
This came in when when marriage equality was legalized.
So to be clear, because it's actually fascinating, because I didn't realize it was this fourth category. So this is a really interesting distinction. Question: the religious ones that are recognized by the Commonwealth, do they, in terms of this level of discrimination, do they not have the legal right to this? Sounds so brutal, but like to discriminate as opposed to the ones that you mentioned, the Commonwealth registered forgive me for the phrasing, they can be, as you said, they can choose more. Am I getting that correct? Or
so civil marriage celebrants, we are the civil marriage celebrants, and state officers are not allowed to discriminate based on any of the laws that are protected by discrimination laws. So things like you can't, that is, most employers are not allowed to discriminate on those bases. We can't discriminate couples based on things like disability, on sexual orientation, on gender, on religion. We can't discriminate on that. The ministers of religion and the religious marriage celebrants can discriminate legally based on, so a prime example, and this has existed prior to marriage equality as well. The prime example being that Catholic ministers of religion won't marry people who are divorced unless they go through the annulment process through. So that's a really common. So it's not quite as sinister as it might sound.
No. I know the word discrimination certainly become a bit of a pariah these days, but it has like that legal definition. I just want to be clear. That's sort of what you and I are both more talking about, rather than the sort of the negative, sinister sort of way that you describe. But yes, no, it's an interesting distinction. I think people probably get caught out sometimes thinking, oh, we go to the church, so therefore we should be okay. Or one of my partner is, and I'm not, so therefore it should still be okay. No, actually, it can't, unless of course you go through a process. Yeah,
they have to just because, and they won't necessarily discriminate against you.
Of course,
they can do so without consequences, basically.
Totally understood.
The biggest category by far is civil marriage celebrants. In fact, around 80% of marriages done in Australia are civil ceremonies.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible shift too, because if you go back 15 years ago, that was not the case at all. And so I think that is just fascinating how the industry has shifted so much. And but it's also great that need has been filled by the industry as well, by individuals like yourself, right?
Well, I know this wasn't what we were going to talk about. We will get back to what it takes to become a marriage celebrant, I promise. But I am such a nerd about the Marriage Act and
no, I'm with you on this. I'm nerding out too. Don't worry.
We have the most incredible wedding industry in Australia, and a big part of that happened 51 years ago, because that 51 years ago was when the first civil celebrant was appointed in Australia, and it was a world first. We were the first country in the world that allowed people to get married in a civil ceremony that was not part of like a government building, that they could go and choose. And so because of that, we've had 50 years to develop this wedding industry and create this vibrant and creative and so interesting industry where we can really customize the wedding to suit the couple. And it doesn't have to be about following the rites and rituals of a religion or keeping it very sterile like a government wedding might be.
I think choice is just the greatest thing, right? Like over 50 years, you know, for all of Australia's faults, we're not a perfect country. It is beautiful that we have as you say, over the last 50 years, allowed choice for something that is so personal to people. So no, it's great. I'm so glad we went down this direction because I think this is truly fascinating. I've not had anybody really go into the minutiae of this, and I think our listeners are going to get some great. If they're, you know, them listening right now, like I hope you guys are nerding out like I am because this is really fascinating stuff.
Well, I don't think a lot of Australian couples realize that we have this in Australia. They don't realize that in many countries still you can't have a legal civil ceremony outside of a government building. I recently had a couple who I married in a non-legal ceremony in Australia who the bride's Australian. She'd actually seen one of my other weddings and loved me, and so that's why she booked me. So sweet. And the partner was German. They both lived in Germany, so they found it easier to do the legals in Germany. But they were like, it was so they could not do the legals in a civil ceremony outside the government building. They had to go to town hall and do it there. And she said it was just nothing. Like it didn't feel
no heart, no soul, no spirit. Absolutely.
We're absolutely spoiled in Australia that we can do this, and we've been able to do this for a very, very long time.
Well,
so I should talk about why we can do this, right? I should talk about how to become a civil celebrant and why you just can't get a friend, because that was where we started.
No, that's fine. I think to be perfectly honest, I think you've really explained it in the sense. I think you've really given us the best sense of why it's so important. I think it's easy for the answer to just simply be, oh, there's a course and it costs, you know, anywhere between $800 to $1,200 or whoever you go with. Has to be someone registered at a proper school, and you do it for 12 months, up to 18 months, and then you get a certificate and then happy days. Like, sure.
No, it's not even a certificate and happy days though. Like all of what you said was correct.
Yeah.
And then you have to, just having the certificate's not enough. You then have to apply to the government, and that can take up to 6 months. So it can take anywhere. If you are really speedy and get your course done in 6 months, you could get registered in maybe a year.
Yeah.
But it could take up to 2 years to get registered.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. You've given us this best sense of just how important it is for a decision that someone like yourself has taken on. And now that we've got over 10,000 celebrants in Australia, it is just really, really, really key for people to understand that, you know, it's not something people take lightly. There is a lot that goes behind it. There's a lot of thought and also just a lot of pioneering that Australia's gone under in order to get to where we are today. For the choice that you have to choose between, as we talked about earlier, $500 celebrants to $2,500 to $3,000 plus celebrants. And I think that's a beautiful sense of choice that we have in this country. Alison, I am running out of time, although you know I could talk with you for a lot. No, I love this. This riffing's fantastic. I just want to ask you I got a couple of rapid fires. And I want to close that by having people you tell people how to find you. So first off, what do you see as just first thing that comes to mind, the biggest trend you're seeing this year?
I think it's definitely that people are getting more creative or thinking outside of the box when it comes to what a wedding can look like. I'm definitely seeing a lot of people shrinking their lists, their guest lists, down to the people that really matter to them. A lot of people thinking, and that doesn't mean that they give up on all the other things that they wanted, but they realize that cost of living is an issue. So if we want everything that we want in a wedding, we can't invite our cousin's best friend's girlfriend. Like we really need to keep it smaller. That's not to say big weddings have gone, but I'm definitely seeing a shift towards these more intimate weddings. And also that people are really getting creative about what they want in their ceremony as well. I don't know if you know this, you probably do, but there's actually only three legal elements to a ceremony. The first is that and I'm talking civil ceremonies, obviously.
Yes. Yeah.
The first is that the celebrant has to say the monitum, which is, I'm legally registered to solemnize marriages according to the law. Before you are joined in marriage in my presence, the presence of everyone here, and to remind you of the solemn binding nature of the relationship into which you're about to enter. Marriage according to law in Australia is a union of two people to the exclusion of all others, voluntarily entered for life. Say that a little slower.
I didn't speed that up, by the way. As well. To be very clear on that.
You've got to sign. The third thing is that you've got to sign some certificates. But the second thing, which is my absolute favorite thing, is that the couple have to say the legal vows, which is, I ask everyone here to witness that I name to be my lawful wedded husband, wife, spouse, partner in marriage, whatever your preferred term is. And the reason that is my absolute favorite thing, and a lot of people don't know, is that is the moment that the couple go from being not married to married.
Yes, very true. It is. It's a fascinating part, because don't get me wrong, like the signing's really important, of course, but it's a beautiful moment, because I think not many people know it. So when you do know it, you're kind of like, do you realize you're married?
I love it. It's not even anything the celebrant says. It's not signing the documents. It's not when we say pronounce you married, because that doesn't have any legal
ceremonial meaning.
It's just ceremonial. It's the couple actually taking that step, that legal step into changing their status, and I love that. I get really excited about it. But
it's great.
The cool thing is, as long as you've got those three elements in there, you can have whatever else you want in the ceremony. And I'm seeing a real trend towards people changing what they want their ceremony to look like.
Very true. I've definitely seen it myself. So I'm thrilled that you're someone who supports it and is really driving that creativity home. Alison, how can people find you? How can they connect with your energy? And most importantly, how can they have you say those wonderful legal words extraordinarily quickly so they can get married?
I can be found, sorry about that ding. I can be found on my website, alisonthecelebrant.com.au, or just whack it into Google. I usually come up pretty highly if you're looking for Sydney celebrants. Alison the Celebrant. I'm also on Instagram, but to be honest, I really don't keep up with my Instagram. But I do check it. I like looking at other people's content. I used to do Instagram and social media professionally. And then when I started my own business, I was like, so much work. But my Instagram is Alison the Celebrant. So you can also connect with me there. I will respond to your messages, I promise.
Love it. Well, all the very best. I look forward to when you get to work again, so I get to see your energy and your excitement and your vibrance as always. And we can sort of, I think next time we'll share eyes the moment that they start doing the I do part, and we'll be like, they don't know, but we know. Alison, thank you so much for the energy and excitement and just the genuineness, that your authenticity that you bring to the industry. Wish you all the best and good luck for this upcoming season.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Just As Planned Wedding Podcast. Please like and subscribe to let me know that you want more videos just like this one. And of course, please follow us on our socials at Just As Planned Wedding on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more expert insights to help your wedding go just as planned.